Live from the redneck suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee, it's the Podunk Polymath podcast where I can't remember the intro because I hardly ever do anymore. Podcast dedicated to the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed up Southern SJW skeptic. I'm your host, Chris. Come on in. This is episode 74, I hope, because I forgot to check once again, of the Triple Po. Thanks again for joining me. Hope you all are doing spectacularly well. Just a couple of things off the top. I got a new subscription on the old YouTubes, and his name is Sailor J.A. Don't really know much about him, but thanks, Sailor J.A. A couple other things. Bryce Baconeggle has started a new podcast, aside from Naked Mormonism, which is called Glass Box Podcast. So I'm gonna need y'all to go check that out. Just go do search Glass Box Podcast. I think it's at Libsyn, Glassbox Podcast at Libsyn.com, and there's a Facebook page and a Twitter. I've shared it pretty significantly. I did yesterday. So if you've been paying attention at all to the Twitter feed or the podcast page, you've seen me share it. Also, Mandisa Thomas over at Black Non-Believers is doing a fundraising drive for, obviously, Black Non-Believers, a summer fundraising drive. Of course, she needs all the help she can get because Black Non-Believers is off the chain. I need y'all to go support that right now. What are you waiting? Are you still here? Why are you not doing it right? You're still not? What? Anyway, go contribute to her if you can. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. Of course, I don't have to tell y'all what a great person she is, what a great cause it is, and what a great organization it is. So definitely go check that out if at all possible. If you got the extra cash, if not, then share it on Facebook or Twitter or other social medias. All right, so we're going to get to our guest tonight. She is somebody who's been a listener of the show since pretty much the beginning. She is a quiz master, which just sounds like awesome, just the way you say that anyway. She works at Planned Parenthood as an accountant, but so what is still Planned Parenthood? I'm not, undercutting that or anything. And she's just an all-around badass. Oh, and she is also now a patron. May I introduce to you Susan Turpin?
Susan, hello. How's it going?
How's it going, Susan? You doing all right?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a very long couple of weeks with all of the wonderful political stuff that's been happening, but we're here, and that's what matters.
All right. Well, why don't you give everybody first of all, let me just go ahead and issue a disclaimer. I have a cold and my voice may be off. So and I might cough and I might have to mute the button, and it's storming like a motherfucker outside. So I hope the electricity stays up and it may be loud. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Susan.
So like you said, I work for Planned Parenthood. I've been there for about 6 months. I actually had originally started my journey into women's rights and reproductive justice about 6 years ago. Starting in 2012, I started fundraising for the National Network of Abortion Funds. And it was a good friend of mine, Catherine, that really got me into that and got me super passionate about all the repro justice stuff and everything. So this year it was my 7th year doing it. So it's a lot of fun. If anybody has ever wanted to, basically, as one of my friends back home put it, bowl for abortions, it's a good fundraiser to do. I lived in Austin for a couple of years. I missed the filibuster and a lot of that stuff. I just barely missed that by about a year. But yeah, then I moved up here. We currently live in Fort Worth. Like I said, been working for Planned Parenthood for about 6 months. I'm actually very soon, within the next couple weeks, Planned Parenthood and American Atheists are teaming up for some comprehensive sex ed stuff that I get to be part of also. So that's going to be fun. Let's see. Quiz mastering stuff. I've worked for, hello, cat. I've worked for Geeks Who Drink for about 3.5 years. It's basically trivia. It's a little more nerdy than some of the other stuff, but it's a lot of fun. It's basically just an excuse to act like an ass every Saturday for about 2 hours. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I hadn't actually heard about it until thunderclap. Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, I just felt the wall vibrate. No, it wasn't my sexiness. Anyway, yeah, I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it, but I went, and it's a national thing apparently. So
yeah, we're all over. I think in almost every state. I'm wanting to say they're further expanding, but I don't know exactly when, and I don't know exactly where. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We do theme quizzes over specific things. The next one we're doing is over The Office, which I get to host. I actually get to host the Dallas venue for that one, and it is sold out already.
ooh.
Yeah, so that's going to be a lot of teams, and I'm trying to come up with some stuff to give us prizes and everything. So that's sort of the fun part of it, is getting to be a little bit creative. And for the Game of Thrones quiz last year, I ended up making a dragon egg out of a styrofoam egg and a bunch of thumbtacks with like spray paint on them. That's a lot of fun.
That sounds pretty.
Got to host a Star Wars quiz too, which my little Star Wars loving heart was very ecstatic about that one.
Oh yeah, you'll find a lot of Star Wars lovers listening to this, I'm sure. I mean, I know I love me some Star Wars, you know. I mean, you're not old enough, you know, to remember.
I'm 31 years old. Thank you very much.
Okay, calm down, youngin.
So I mean, the prequels came out like the exact right time for
pain.
quote unquote enjoy them.
Enjoy is an awful
it's a very generous term.
So anyway, let's kind of dig in, I guess, a little bit to the main topic, I guess. The wonderful things that are going on regarding abortion rights and how they're getting better, right? Right? Yeah.
So with Justice Kennedy retiring, there's actually a lot of people who are looking to see if they can get someone installed that can overturn Roe v. Wade, which is kind of terrifying. Because the whole point of Roe v. Wade, I mean, obviously people understand the basic idea of it, but the whole point was making sure that people had access to safe legal abortion. And if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, it's just going to end up putting an end to safe legal abortion, and abortion's not going to end if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, which, again, I'm sure people realize that, but the vocal people who are so amazingly anti-choice really think that putting an end to, quote unquote, putting an end to abortion rather is going to mean that it's going to stop completely. And no, that is not the case in the slightest.
No.
Yeah. There was actually some, this is last month, there's a number of sort of Texas-related abortion funds that help both pay for the actual procedure itself and for costs associated with it, like travel and childcare and lodging and stuff like that. And they filed a lawsuit in the state of Texas that are challenging a lot of the laws that are restricting abortion. I did a little bit of reading up on it earlier because I heard about it, but I didn't know as much about it. But it looks like Whole Women's Health Alliance, the I don't know how to say this one. AFIA Center, Fund Texas Choice, Lilith Fund, Texas Equal Access Fund, the West Fund, and Dr. Bhavik Kumar, who's the medical director of Whole Women's Health Alliance, filed the lawsuit. They're the plaintiffs in the case. And it's just basically, it's them wanting to challenge a lot of the very awful abortion restrictions that we have here in Texas. I know a lot of people were, I saw that. I know there's, we recently had the 5-year anniversary of the Wendy Davis filibuster, and there's, you know, that was her famous filibuster. You know, she spent between 11 and 13 hours on the floor and did not stop. She did not yield, but then they ended up calling a special session and HB2 passed. But then in 2016, the Supreme Court overruled HB2, which was yay. So that's sort of what they're going as the basis of the lawsuit. All these abortion funds and Whole Women's Health, they're going based on the overturning of HB2. So that's very exciting to me, as somebody who has been so interested in reproductive justice and who has a budding interest in law and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see where that one goes. I have cautious optimism, very cautious, considering the clusterfuck that is our current government. So we'll see how that one goes.
Optimism isn't in my nature generally, so I'm kind of scared, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no. I've sort of tried to steer away from being a cynic, but it's very hard to do that considering the state of a lot of things these days.
Yeah, and I guess I should say I'm scared. I'm a white guy, you know. I'm a cishet white guy, so you know it's not really going to affect me because I can't have babies. But this will affect many people, many women who need to have it. And it's, of course, everybody knows, despite you know right-wing propaganda, you know, anti-abortion types, that only a tiny minority of Planned Parenthood budget is concerned with abortions. Most of it's women's, you know, care and education, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's 3% of the Planned Parenthood services are actual abortion services. They receive a lot of funding in lower income areas for, like you said, the you know, women's health preventative care. There's women who go there that would not otherwise be able to receive any sort of care that they need. And the fact that, you know, and I'm sure this is a highly overused phrase, that they're just basically wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, fuck it all. Oh, yeah. That was unintentional.
But kind of funny, but go ahead.
Yeah, they're just sort of wanting to say fuck it all. And what was it in, and I think it was in South Carolina, their governor declined like $16 million in like Medicaid funding or something. I'd have to look it up again. So if I am wrong, please somebody correct me. I'm open to being corrected. But the reason was that there was funding for Planned Parenthood in that, and he was like, no, we're gonna turn this down. And it's like, what? What I really don't understand is the people who benefit from this service. And it's not just, you know, it's not just women, it's men and people of any gender, really. Because Planned Parenthood recently started offering gender affirming hormone therapy at certain ones of our health centers for Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas. And there's this wide array of services, and it's going to hurt marginalized communities, and they don't care. They just do not give a shit, because they only care about themselves a lot of the time. They only care about, how can something benefit me? How can I make sure that it's going to be for me, or whatever? I don't know. But yeah, it's infuriating, and I don't know if it's my own, SJW nature to want to make sure that any marginalized community has a voice and is fought for, but I don't get it. I can't wrap my brain around that sort of thinking of not wanting to help people.
Because they don't really care. They just care about their constituents, and they just care about
the people who are going to give them money.
Yeah, that's all it's about. It's not about actually giving a fuck about anybody. I mean,
no. And so at I went to the Democratic State Convention 2 weeks ago, I think. It was like the last full weekend in June. And there was a booth for pro-life Democrats and also anti-vax Democrats, which I don't understand in the slightest. I can't. Excuse me. But there were all these people crowding around the Planned Parenthood Texas Votes table, and there's two different contingents of Planned Parenthood. There's Planned Parenthood Greater Texas, who's a 501c3, and they're the ones that actually offer the healthcare services. And then there's Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, and they're the PAC. So they're the ones that have the ability to actually endorse candidates or do anything of the political nature. And Planned Parenthood Texas Votes they're the ones that have the buttons, don't fuck with us, don't fuck without us, which is my favorite thing in the world. And there were all these people around the Planned Parenthood table and nobody at the pro-life Democrats table. And I saw on Facebook this debate, is there room for pro-life Democrats in our party? And I am far more liberal than most of the Democrats that I encounter. And I'm to me, the answer to, is there room for pro-life Democrats? No, I don't think there is. And that's just...
Oh, I know. For me, they can get the fuck out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mince words on it. They can get the fuck out.
Yeah, because it's a basic idea of bodily autonomy and being able to make the choices for yourself that are often very difficult choices. I mean, there's shirts that I think it's that NARAL sells. It might not be NARAL, I don't know. That says everyone loves somebody who has had an abortion. And that's true. Like whether or not somebody will openly say it to you, we all know somebody who has had an abortion. And every person comes to the decision in a different way. But it's something that it's a very personal thing, and it's heavily weighed, and it's something that needs to be left up to the individual.
Yeah, people act like there's just, well, I think I'm going to get up today and have an abortion. Just willy-nilly. Just like, it's fine. I'm just going to have a fucking abortion.
It's not. I mean, and here in Texas, they have the mandatory waiting period where I don't know if it still is, but at one point it was, at least a 24-hour waiting period between the time that you go in and have the ultrasound and they tell you that you're pregnant, and then you have to wait and then come back for the actual procedure itself. And one thing that really, really rustles my jimmies is is the idea that doctors a lot of the time, they have to, they have to point the screen at the woman and say, this is your baby, it's so many weeks along, and offer, supposedly they have to offer all of the different options and really stress adoption and stuff like that. And it just makes it so much more difficult for these people who have to go through this very, very difficult procedure. That's infuriating.
Oh, that's all it's about. It's all about making shit more difficult.
Yeah.
That's all it's ever been about. I mean, a couple of cases have gone to Supreme Court or the circuit courts. A lot of times don't even make it past there. Yeah, this is bullshit. This has not even got anything to do with abortion. It's just got to do with you trying to, like, you have to have, like, what was it, doctor privileges in hospitals.
Yeah, that was the thing with HB2, was that it was going to be, they had to have admitting privileges, and each of the clinics that were going to offer abortion services had to be up to the same standards as ambulatory surgical centers. And with Planned Parenthood, we qualify all of our abortion services, all of our health centers that offer the abortion services as ambulatory surgical centers. But when it came down, there were so many, I don't remember the exact number, there were so many clinics that were forced to close because they could not meet the standards, or they were not being offered hospital admitting privileges. And I don't know exactly how many actual abortion clinics there are in Texas now. It's a very small number. It's a far smaller number than the number of crisis pregnancy centers that are in this godforsaken state. But in my hometown of Corpus Christi, that is a relatively major area. It's not humongous. It's probably about the size of Fort Worth, like Fort Worth proper. But there is no abortion clinic within 100 miles of Corpus Christi, which means that they would have to travel to the Valley or to San Antonio. And it's a lot of times these people aren't able to take time off of work. They're not able to they're not able to get childcare. They can't pay for lodging. They can't pay for the transportation. And it's these insurmountable barriers that only serve to basically make somebody feel better about themselves because they were controlling somebody. And it's about control, a lot of it. A lot of it is just about the controlling of women and making sure that, we can't make these decisions for ourselves because we're just little women and we can't do it. So
yeah, your poor little lady brains can't handle it.
Yeah, it's just too much for us to take, apparently.
Patriarchy. And people seem to, for anybody, I've never been to Texas, but it's fucking ginormous.
Yeah, it is legit a state that you can drive for 12 hours and not be out of.
Texas, bigger than France.
Yes, Texas is bigger than France. It is huge. So, in places like West Texas, especially, where there are no abortion centers, and it was announced within the last 4 months. There was an article about it, but PPGT, Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas, is looking at expanding into West Texas. So that was officially announced. That's not something I can't mention. There was an article about that. So there's sometimes that I'm not sure when, if it's something that I'm told in a meeting that is like, oh, you can't technically mention this because it's we're wanting to make sure that stuff's under wraps. But there was an article about that, so I can say that.
Ooh, I feel I've like got the right, the second degree connection there.
Didn't realize I could make somebody feel cool. I was not aware of that.
I need all the help I can get with feeling cool. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I wanted to segue a little bit because I'm looking over here in the chat room, and there's somebody who is a friend of mine who was commenting. She said Planned Parenthood was there when I needed it. My only complaint was there was no anesthetic back in the day.
Oh, yikes!
And for well, I don't want to call her out too. It was like 25 years ago. Yeah, that's about right.
Oh
yeah.
Man.
She said,
"I'm glad that Planned Parenthood could be there and help them. That's the biggest thing for me is the idea that we're helping people and making sure that people are taken care of." So.
And then she says over 75% of women I know have needed an abortion at some point in their lives. And to me, in a lot of instances, I don't think it's one of those things where they have to because it's like, what's it called? Ectopic
pregnancies?
Ectopic
well,
pregnancy.
There's like tubal ligations where it's a form of sterilization, but ectopic pregnancies are like a non-viable pregnancy in a specific way.
Yeah, so it's not just, thing where people want to get abortions or whatever. It's which is fine, but it's just there's all kinds of other stuff that women need Planned Parenthood for. And then she said the abortion pill is a blessing. It should be available over the counter, which is ridiculous that it's not.
I think it should be. The barriers that there are to receiving abortions in any shape, form, or fashion, whether it's you decide to go the surgical route or you decide to go the medical route, it needs to be more accessible. It needs to be it is literally the safest procedure that somebody can have because it is just so highly regulated. There is a far smaller risk of complications due to abortion than there are even to pregnancy and childbirth.
So yeah, it helps women, and even like I said, even if you are not going to get an abortion, if you need a low cost, do they have I'm sure they do have income based.
Yes, yeah. A lot of their stuff is income based. They offer the long acting. I don't know if it's reversible or removable, but they call them LARCs, long acting reversible contraceptives, like IUDs and implants and stuff like that. And a lot of those are based on income. They accept all kinds of insurance. So if you are fortunate enough to have insurance, they will take insurance. And the health center assistants and the health center managers are some of the hardest working people that I have ever had the pleasure of dealing with. They put up with a lot. And I have so much love and respect for the people who work in healthcare in general, but specifically, who work at our health centers. They're fantastic people.
Is there any other services you can think of off the top of your head that are like something that are primary things that Planned Parenthood does?
I know they recently started offering, and it's a little more specialized, but they recently started offering PrEP, which is like the HIV prevention and aftercare and stuff like that. They recently started offering that. Like I said earlier, they recently started doing the gender affirming hormone therapy. I am about 99% sure that if you just go into Planned Parenthood and you're like, I just need a work physical, they'll do it. Like they're willing to do it. and they're great. Like they're absolutely. I actually had to go to the health center that's just around the corner from our apartment. Looking ads way TMI, and I apologize. Looking at getting my own IUD replaced, and the health center manager was fantastic. They referred me to who I needed to talk to. They're willing to be with their patients every step of the way, and I love them for that. I really do.
So let's kind of segue a little bit, I guess. We didn't really discuss, I want to discuss real quick, the vacancy on the Supreme Court and how that's could possibly affect Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, I know there's an article that I read earlier was that it's down to about 3 people. And only one of them had said, either hadn't said anything about Roe v. Wade or said that they weren't looking towards overturning it. The other 2 people were just all like, no, we'll totally do this. And I don't, again, I can't wrap my brain around that way of thinking. Like the legal standing for wanting to make sure that people can't take care of themselves. I don't understand. I just don't.
I understand men, sort of, unless it's their own daughters. Of course, they always, or their mistresses and shit. They're completely cool with them getting abortions, but anybody else, no, fuck that.
Yeah. It's like a lot of evangelicals, or people make fun of evangelicals saying the only legal abortion is my abortion, or the only moral abortion is my abortion, sort of thing.
Yeah. So, but there's a woman that I've seen mentioned as a candidate, and she creeps me out a little bit. I don't understand how a woman can think that way.
Yeah, I don't. I think a lot of it has to do with a great deal of internalized misogyny. Like, women are willing to, and this is a very, very broad statement. The women who are willing to basically throw other women under the bus for the sake of wanting to appeal to party lines, they're no better than the men who are wanting to stop any of this. And I feel like it's almost worse when it's, anybody other than a man, because they don't. I feel like we should be in this together. Like, we should be able to come to this consensus that we can take care of ourselves in this sense. And I don't get it. There's a lot of things I don't get.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to understand where they're coming from on that. I mean, I do want people to keep in mind, though, that Roe versus Wade can't just be overturned just like that. I mean, there has to be a test case, has to work its way up through the system, through the circuit courts and, states and all the different court levels before it actually gets to the Supreme Court or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but also we have to remember that Supreme Court justices last for fucking ever, basically a fucking generation.
Basically, yeah. So the fact that Kennedy's retiring is something that took a lot of people by surprise, because it's basically just understood that you're going to be in there until you die, and then he's just sort of meh.
Well, the way I feel right now, I hope he has a fucking heart attack. Okay, fuck him, because he could have waited to the midterms.
Yeah, he could
Okay.
have waited until after, and it wouldn't have been nearly as big a deal. But it seems like it's a very, very calculated political move in order to make assholes like Mitch McConnell say, "Oh, well, you're not going to be allowed to block us like we blocked you."
Yeah, and they're all Democrat. Okay, so I know you're part of the Texas Democratic, whatever. But okay, come on, y'all got. I'm gonna need y'all to fortify. Okay, I'm gonna need you to stiffen the spines and don't. I mean, because some of them are like, well, he's got to hold to his promise that the people have to speak or whatever. Wait till the mid. You know damn well McConnell ain't gonna do that.
Oh no, he's gonna pull whatever bullshit he can in order to make sure that basically somebody who is just like Gorsuch, but would be more along the lines of like, I don't know, 40 years old.
Yeah, I'm not good with that, and I think this is an important time when, especially with somebody like being elected in New York, Cortez, I believe her name is.
Oh yes.
She she is a solid progressive a candidate, and I these old white people, frankly, need to fucking either step up or step out, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, and they don't represent so much of the voting population anymore. They represent the special interests, and they represent the people who are going to be more able to give these huge sums of money. But they if we have I've seen a number of articles, and I'm sure you've seen them too, saying stuff like articles and tweets and stuff saying, should millennials run for office? And my argument for millennials running for office is there is, and I'm almost entirely certain this is not an original argument, so if somebody has a source for this, please let me know. That there's going to be a time when millennials are the great amount of the population, where we're going to be the ones that are needing to be represented. And I mean, we need to be represented now regardless, but it's what's frustrating for me is the people who represent me in local government and state government and federal government are people who are such polar opposites from me. And again, I realize I am far more progressive and liberal than a great many number of the Democrats that I meet. I get that. But it's people like it's people like Beto O'Rourke, who is getting a lot of traction. Lupe Valdez, who is looking at if she's elected, she would be the first Latina and LGBTQ governor. Mike Collier, who was an accountant, for Christ's sake, so he knows how the numbers work. And even here locally, so the woman locally who's running for SD10, her name is Beverly Powell, and she's great. I like her. But she's running in the same seat that Wendy Davis held. So the person who currently holds it is Connie Burton, and Connie Burton is pretty awful. Oh, and also, did you see the thing about how there were like elected officials that were in Russia over July 4th? One of those was somebody from Texas, was Kay Granger.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's like, what? How do you justify that? Like they're meeting with the people who are fucking with elections and stuff like that.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's called outrage fatigue, I guess is what I've heard it called. But we got to paying attention. But man, it's hard sometimes. It's just
Yeah. Well, there was something I posted on Facebook. And I think like within the last, or about a week ago, I was just sort of like, so the state of things sucks. And we're all angry. And our anger is justified. But we have to find this way to use this anger in order to motivate us to make things better and to build other people up and to gain allies within other movements to support each other and overcome this massive amount of bullshit that's happening.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of groups doing that. Of course, you saw Keeping Families Together. That was going on with the families being separated at the border. There's big marches there. Of course, there's also here in Nashville, I know they're trying to get a police accountability board installed, which Nashville is fairly progressive. So I don't know. Of course, the police unions always fight anything like that just out of reflex almost. So we'll see how that goes. But there's Black Lives Matter. I've seen LGBTQ groups are always, of course, in the mix. There's a lot of groups I see out there that are really trying to make a difference. I just hope that it's enough, because the election of Trump has really emboldened a lot of these fucking crazy ass white people. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of crazy ass white people out there.
We're seeing this rash of people calling the cops on Black people for swimming and for eating at restaurants and shit like this, and it's like I completely understand that racism has always existed, will always exist, does exist now, but it's the fact that the president says things that are, outright lies, that are bragging about sexual assault and sexual harassment. It makes people feel like that kind of stuff is okay now. And they need to realize that it's not, that none of it is, that they're going to receive backlash for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, the normalization of this shit. And I think that's on an individual level. I mean, I know it's not easy confronting people, and I've thought about this myself, but if you hear somebody saying some racist, misogynistic, xenophobic shit, I mean, without putting yourself in danger, obviously, if it's some big bubba with like, with like a shotgun, don't do that.
Yeah.
But if you feel safe in doing so, I'd be like, hey, and I'm a big bearded white dude, so in most situations, I'd probably be okay if I bluff my way through it. But I'm like, hey, that's not cool, man, or something, something like that. I think it's that kind of stuff, and I think you'll find a lot of people will back you up. If there usually takes one person to step up, and then people get behind them. Usually, I mean, that's
right. Yeah.
So I'm not saying everybody should do that, can do that, but I'm saying. And even stuff like if you see somebody online talking shit and like stuff like that, say, hey, that's not cool. Call them out.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to, I've seen a lot of people saying stuff like, oh, well, we need to reach past this stuff and da-da-da-da. But it's not, there's a lot of this stuff that you can't get past, that you can't allow to be in your life. And it's okay to cut toxic people out of your life, because that, it teaches them that if they're going to say shit that is racist and misogynistic and all this awful stuff, that they are going to suffer consequences, that they're going to lose relationships with people that they thought were their friends. And there's somewhere else I was going with that. Oh, yeah. And it's a matter of taking care of yourself too, of cutting the toxic people out of your life. And, you have to realize that there can come a certain point where you can step back from someone and say, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit. I'm just not.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing of, well, you have to hear both sides. No, I don't, motherfucker. Says who? Especially this whole, you're in a bubble. Okay, fuck you. So what? I'm supposed to like put up with shit just for the sake of looking like I'm well rounded and I listen to both sides. I don't have to do shit. I am not obliged to entertain your horrific ideas. I'm not obliged to do that. So, and I wanted let's segue a little bit because I'm looking down the chat here. I don't know if you can see the chat or not, but some clever person, Kean Hilton, I dare you to get a tit out.
Nope.
So that segues nicely into the Men Are Trash segment, which
Yep. Oh, that segues wonderfully.
So
fine.
super clever, super awesome. It's always cool to get and be anonymous, behind the keyboard and sit there and talk shit. So, Susan, as a woman, of course, femme presenting woman, or however you want to term it, you have presumably had your share of disconcerting messages from us male folk.
Yeah, I found it was. I don't get as much now that I'm not on dating sites or anything, but so when I was on dating sites, I mean, of course, you see the typical, really awful openers and stuff like that, but there's been some in particular. When I was on like OkCupid and stuff like that, I was very, very open about being an atheist and being a feminist and, being a ginormous geek, nerd, dork, whatever you want to call it. So this particular one is a personal one that I got, which I did not get this person's username, which I'm okay with that. Okay, just read your profile. I would support a revolution called Bring Back the Firefly. Last interesting thing I saw was Fargo. I don't believe in any form of authority, whether it's bearded guy in the sky or freshly shaven black boy in the White House. I step on people who are activists or anyone that tries to change the world. I miss the States a lot. Really like your whole package, Miss Dorky. And in parentheses, please don't be a feminist or something like that. Yeah.
That was his opening statement, so
Yeah.
I have to say that's a little more articulate than most that I've seen.
Yeah. So I'll give them that. So that's, cool.
It's not, hey, here's my dick, and just open with the dick pic, but still, it's still douchey.
Yeah, it makes these assumptions that I'm going to respond positively, especially considering the fact that I said that I was a feminist on my profile and liberal and stuff like that. It makes these assumptions that I'm either going to respond very positively and be like, oh, that's great, you're super cool, or I'm going to start a fight with them. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you that you're cool. I'm not going to tell you you're interesting because you're not. But I'm also not going to start a fight with you because you're not worth it. You're just not worth it when you say, such amazingly antagonistic things, rather. I'm trying to say Antigone. When you say these things to people in order to try and elicit the response from them, and it's no, I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. I'm just not going to.
Well, that's what they want, really. It's to get a rise, I guess. Although I don't know what is your point, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like why just dive right in with the whole "I'm going to be an asshole" thing. And I mean, I guess it'd be fine if there was going to be any sort of further interaction, and he was an asshole from the get-go, so I guess I couldn't blame myself for thinking that he'd be a decent person.
I've tried that actually, but anyway, it's neither here nor there. No, I'm a complete asshole, and I just try. You have to run the gauntlet. I've mellowed a little bit over the years.
You're like, not as bad as it used to be.
I did have somebody has sent me a treasure trove of these, so I'm going to read a couple of these. Okay, and with her permission, she's sent me all these. And these are horrible. You say you're fat. How fat are you?
Wow.
Why? I love big girls. Okay, do you want a prize? Okay, that's a good one. What are you asking? Do you want to go to the beach or not? No, if you wanted to, you could. Hence why I said no. Okay, I'm trying to find some good ones. You into black guys ever use a strap on?
That seems like that's two entirely different directions for that one to go. Like that's I don't understand where that one was trying to go either.
But how is that a thing you just start off with? I mean, presumably this is not. She wouldn't have sent me these unless they were just completely off kilter.
Yeah.
So presumably it's not just somewhere where let's fuck. Okay, even then though, you don't come out just out the gate with that generally. I mean,
I think a lot of the attitude behind it and the intention behind it is they figure even if it only works like 10% of the time or 5% of the time, then at least, however many times you try, it's going to work sometime. It's going to be totally fine. It'll work on somebody. And it's, to me, that vastly underestimates women and the intended recipients of these messages. Like they're gonna figure that we're just gonna be so stupid that we're gonna totally go for it. It's like no it's not gonna happen.
I know guys are shit. Guys are trash. There's some great ones on here. I'll save a couple. I did want to ask you before we run out of time about your work with the Texas Democratic Party.
Oh yeah. So I had gotten involved when we were up here for about 6 months. I got involved with the Tarrant County Democratic Women's Club, and they're the local PAC. They support women candidates in Tarrant County specifically. And eventually give them money and work to get them elected and find a way for Democratic women to connect. And I got involved with them. They found out that I had done the fundraising with the National Network of Abortion Funds, and they're like, "We want you on our fundraising committee." And I was like, "Okay." So I'm currently on the fundraising committee for that. We have our big fundraiser gala on September 14th. So if there's anybody who's in the DFW area who wants to come to a fundraising gala, they could totally come. But yeah, I went to the convention a little while back, last week, a couple weeks ago. And I got involved. Actually, this for the second year, they had the Secular Caucus, which that was one really big thing that I really, really wanted to attend, was the Secular Caucus, because I feel there's a vast underrepresentation of any sort of secularism, whether, it's people who are religious but value the idea of a secular constitution, or if they're atheists or agnostics or nuns or whatever. There's such... From what I understand, it's like the biggest voting bloc, and only like 10% of us voted in 2016. So it's something that I really, really wanted to be a part of. And I actually had thrown my hat in for treasurer of the Texas Secular Caucus. I was the only candidate, so I win by default, I guess. So
Yay!
yeah, there's nothing wrong with winning by default. It's totally fine. It's still winning nonetheless.
Winning, exactly.
Yes.
Hashtag winning. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so and I've decided that eventually, and maybe not, in the next city council election, but here within the next probably 5 years, I do have serious aspirations to eventually run for, public office.
Uh-oh. You heard it here.
Yeah. Annie's List is doing a Candidate 101 on July 25th in Dallas. And that's sort of basics of how to run a campaign, what a lot of the stuff is going to entail and everything. So going to that. I'm very excited. But yeah, and I took a look at the representation, the city councilmen, city council, office holders who represent the area of Fort Worth that I'm in, and it was all men. It's never been represented by women. And
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, that's not fair. So that would be something that I think would be a first step to eventually wanting to run for, maybe Texas House or Texas Senate, or, eventually work my way up. So very excited for that.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I would definitely be behind, something like that. I think a lot, especially in fucking Texas, Jesus Christ. I mean, even though the way they gerrymander the districts down there, it's ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, and that was another Supreme Court decision that came down like last week, was about gerrymandering specific. I think it was Abbott v. Perez. I'm awful at pronouncing things, so I deeply apologize. That was about gerrymandering in Texas, and the Supreme Court ruled that only one particular district was gerrymandered to an extent that it was detrimental to minority voters. And it's in a section of Fort Worth that is historically it's a historically, Black section of Fort Worth, and it's just it twists and it turns around and it goes all around, and it's like I don't I hate that.
I hate all the things. I don't know. It's hard to be positive right now, to be honest with you. But hopefully the midterms will give us some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, I hope.
Like I said, you got to use the anger to motivate you, and you got to use the anger to make sure that you are getting behind the causes that you are passionate about. And, whether it is voting rights or women's rights or, LGBTQ rights, or, hopefully it's going to be things that, completely intersect with all of those. But find a cause and get behind it and get involved in it, and find a candidate that you enjoy what they say and what they stand for. And even if you don't agree with them on everything, chances are you're going to agree with them far more than you're going to agree with any of the Republicans. So,
yeah, I mean, everybody has to make their own call on that, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that there's no way in fuck anybody I know would vote for Republican. There's no there might have been back in the day such a thing as a liberal Republican, but not anymore.
Yeah.
It's too polarized. There's no way in fuck.
Yeah,
that's gonna happen. So, is there anything else you wanted to plug or anything like that?
Trying to think. Nothing in particular. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Motel Cowboy. Yes, I do realize that I'm a woman with Motel Cowboy as her Twitter handle.
I meant to ask you that, actually.
So one of my favorite bands is a band called Reckless Kelly. They are an Austin-based band that they qualify themselves as hick rock. So I absolutely love them. I've been to dozens of their shows, like probably at least about 4 dozen at this point. And they have a song based on one of their favorite bands. And one of their favorite bands is Pinto Bennett and the Famous Motel Cowboys. And they have a song called Motel Cowboy Show, which is, hey, old lady, let's go to the Motel Cowboy Show. So I was changing my Twitter handle probably about 7 or 8 years ago from the Susan Turpin to Motel Cowboy. And it's always just sort of stuck, and it's sort of the way that I'm known. And I was debating on changing it a little while back, but I was like, no, it's sort of what I'm known for. So,
well, it's definitely a story behind it. So it's a good talking point, I think.
Yeah. If anybody wants to like my Quizmaster page, it's Geeks Who Drink QM the Susan Turpin. You can check out my blog, the blog associated with it and stuff. It's not like insights into the mind of Susan sort of thing, but it's more just about quiz. And if you can find a Geeks Who Drink quiz near you, I highly suggest going and playing. Geekswhodrink.com. They are absolutely wonderful, and I love them.
I need to go. I don't know if I'll look before or no. It's got to be something. I think there's one in Knoxville.
Like one in the net, because I think I looked for you like a year and a half ago or something, or a year ago or something, and there was only like one in the entire Nashville area. Like
it was
a week.
Yeah, I have to look again. Maybe if I didn't have my own thing, I might do it, but who knows? Fuck, maybe I'll do another thing. I don't know. I'm a popular guy, So. All right, Susan. Well, of course, all the links that you mentioned will be in the show notes. And I appreciate you coming on, as well as, I assume, your significant other who's playing in the background.
Yes, he is. He's just sort of been hanging out.
And the cat.
Yeah, and the cat, too.
The cat's just sticking his head in there.
Yes.
Okay.
Knock something over, but thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me on. It's always fun to do stuff like this, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I didn't want to say that I just had you on because you're a patron, but
I promise I'm at least somewhat interesting, or at least
no. Well, when you told me you worked at Planned Parenthood, that really piqued my interest. And of course, all the other stuff, which I've seen you post about when you were at the Democratic, whatever convention or whatever down in Texas. I thought that was pretty interesting. So apparently you're a big popular person down there. So I figured I better talk to somebody important.
Yeah. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. So.
Or you get too important, forget the other people.
You get too big for my britches.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be.
All right, Susan. Well, again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess that's going to do it for this episode of the Podunk Polymath podcast. Of course, forgive me for the coughing and the thunderstorm. Shit happens. I don't know what to do about that, but of course, if you want to check out the page, it's thepodunkpolymath.com. Of course, the music is by cdbaby.com/cd/.dash, which will be on the podcast version. I stole from Zach again, shamelessly, because I'm going to put the intro and the outro in the podcast version, because I was going to try to it and you mix it, and it's just too much effort. So a live mixer thingy, I just don't have that. It's too much energy. Of course, the Facebook.com/podunkpolymath, Twitter @podunkpolymath, email podunk.polymath@gmail.com, youtube.com/podunkpolymath, Google Plus, which I don't even know anybody use that anymore, the Podunk Polymath. If you want to become part of the Patreon posse, which of course I told y'all last week that I got pretty huge influx, you can go to the Podunk Polymath, patreon.com, the Podunk Polymath. You can call the number 615-378-POPO-7676. And, of course, the Podunk Polymath podcast online store is com/podunk_polymath, which I still have to update that damn t-shirt to match the new and improved logo from Jeff Prebick Jr., the lover of cats. That he has a Facebook page for his cat. So if that tells you anything. I forgot to mention, of course, you can look on the sidebar of the page to see my tweets. You can donate via PayPal. Why do I keep doing that? PayPal. No king shaming there. Subscribe on RSS, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Patreon button. You can like the Facebook page, recent posts, recent comments. I was on Sacrilege. Cat has 150th extravaganza with Genie, which they should be coming. They're going to be coming on soon. It may be actually the next one. I want to see if I can't finagle that. So stay tuned on that one. And my voice, I apologize for that. So not much I can do about my personality. That's, unless I do some fucking Andy Kaufman shit. But anyway, enough rambling. So thanks for listening. Thanks for braving the thunderstorm, Susan. And thanks for Susan for coming on. Great story. A great guest. She's doing a bunch of shit, doing important shit. She's one of those people who actually does things, unlike my fat ass. So, all right. Anyway, until next time, y'all take it easy now. Okay.